Alrighty, quick update. My throttle body showed up. Figured I'd just put it on and see, mock it up here. It is a 92mm WARR Performance 4-bolt throttle body. I don't know if I can get in there to where you can see it. It's so damn dark in here. But it's engraved. Uses the typical GM sensors. And unlike the cheaper eBay ones, the sensors actually fit pretty well in here. So I tried my old ones, but I'm gonna get some new ones to put in there. I don't want them ugly old sensors hanging off there. My fuel rails showed up. Also, they are -8 fuel rails, a lot bigger than the factory 3/8. Let's see over here. They came with all the fittings. They use that one's tight. ORB fittings, which have the O-ring. They have the crossover in the back, which is really nice. Comes with a 100 PSI liquid filled fuel pressure gauge. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get the camera back there. You can see I barely have clearance. I got about a 1/4 inch, which should be just right. The only thing I think I'm gonna have to change is I think I'm gonna have to put spacers, 1/4 inch spacers maybe, to move my coil brackets out to give me a little bit more room for the injector harness to pass through under here. I'm trying to keep everything nice, neat, tucked in tight. I don't like it when wire harnesses are just all out all over the place. I want everything nice ran, so you're not, first thing you look at, it's not all the wiring sticking out. And I also decided to mock up the cold side piping. This is just a short section that I had left over actually from the first kit. And then I took it down to the 90, the straight section with the blow off valve. Then you can see down there, that's the Y. So each pipe will come off, will come down here, and then I'll have a hole cut and it'll run elbow right into the turbo. My lower radiator hose is going to be right here, so I think I got enough room to just run it right under the radiator hose. I'll be alright. The other issue I'm running into, and I'm trying to find a workaround, is I have to find a pretty narrow or shallow electric cooling fan. I have about 3.5 inches, if I push it maybe 4 inches of clearance between this and the radiator, because I'm going to lose 1/2 inch when I put my meth kit plate behind the throttle body, so that'll move everything out about 1/2 inch. So I'm actually going to lose even more. I think I might be able to force it back, but I'm working with one of my friends to see if he can get me a setup. Yeah, so I'm still waiting on my wiring harness, my solid state relays, so I can do PWM fuel pump control, and I'll be able to pulse width the fans for different speeds using the Mega Squirt. And there's a few other little things. My elbows, I posted on my website a teaser from my fab guy. He's already got the pie cuts made. They're T304 stainless. If you remember those ugly ass elbows I had, those are going to be replaced, and each one will have a 2 1/8 inch MPT bungs welded into them. Each elbow will have a EGT probe, and each elbow will have a back pressure sensor, so I can monitor back, so I can data log back pressure and EGTs. So I can't wait to get those back, because I'm kind of in a holding pattern right now as far as anything under the hood goes until I get the turbos back and in their actual final position. Once I get that, I can start modifying the down tubes, and I can start working on the cold side and all that other stuff and start plumbing. So, but that's where we're at. I also have a steam kit, 4-corner steam kit coming. This LC9 came out of an 07 Silverado, and from the factory they only used the front coolant ports, the steam ports right here. On the back ports they actually have a rivet in there with a plug, So I have to pull the motor out anyways because I have to have the drain bungs welded into the oil pan for the turbos. So while I got the motor out, I'm going to drill out those rivets and pull them plugs out so I can put the 4-corner steam kit. And then when it does get installed, I'm going to use this port right here just to dump it back into. A lot of guys will run it up and they'll tee it into the hose, which is fine. But if I can just dump it right here and do a 90-degree fitting and keep it nice and compact out of the way, that's great. And while that's out, I'm going to drill and tap an 1/8" MPT hole right here for my cooling system pressure sensor. So that way if I start to push a head gasket or have any gasket issues, I'll see the spike in pressure in the data log and I'll know something's going on. As far as the radiator hoses, another thing I'm getting ready to do is once the turbos get in and the cold side's all in the way, I'll be able to get the radiator hoses. I have to flip the blow-off valve to this side because it's in the way of my upper radiator hose. It's going to come out. And on these trucks from the factory, they don't have a radiator cap on the radiator. There's no cap. It's actually in line in the upper hose, and it sets right about here from the factory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off with a tight 90 and put it right about here. I'm going to make a bracket that bolts to the core support to hold that, so my radiator cap will be right here. So it'll still be the highest point in the system. It'll just be tucked up out of the way. And then on somewhere I have to find a place, probably down low, for the probably on this side, probably right about here, for the coolant overflow bottle. I do have the hose also. I did stop. Hard's actually had it. The 5/8 hose that I'm going to use for the breathers, they're going to come off. I'm waiting for the fittings in the breather tank to come off. They're going to come off the back, come around, run up here, and then my breather tank, I'm going to try to tuck it in right about here somewhere. Keep it out of the way. It's like 10.5 inches tall with the filter element on it, so it's going to be pretty tight. And then I have to deal with the fact that the turbo is going to be setting right about here, and I'm going to have cone air filters on it, so it's going to be kind of tight up in there, so I don't know. But, okay, that's about everything I have right now, everything I can think of. Pretty much I'm just waiting on parts to show up. So once they get here, these are the flex fuel, the factory flex fuel injectors. So I may use those just to get it started and let it idle, because I'm not going to be, you know, making boost right while it's sitting here idling for the first fire. So I may use those to get it started, and then put the, once I get them, the better injectors in there. I'm really not sure what injectors. I think I'm going to go with 160 pound injectors. So, but I was watching Matt's video about the 105 from Fuel Injector Clinic, so thinking I might just bite the bullet and put the better injectors in it now instead of having to go back and repay and all that bullshit. Spend money now instead of spending a lot more later. And I need to get the other coil bracket made and get it on, and then hopefully after New Year's I'm going to put the order in and order the majority of the fuel system. It's going to have -8 feed from the pump to the rail, or to the regulator. The regulator is going to be over on this fender, since NHRA says you can't put them on the firewall. It's going to be on this fender, and then it'll have a -8 feed to the rail, and then it'll have a -8 return back to the fuel cell. Coming from the fuel cell to the pump, it's going to have 2 -10s out of the pump that'll run into a Y, into a single -10 into the pre-filter. Then it'll go into the MagnaFuel 4304. I think it's 4304, I can't remember. And then from that pump, it's going to go into the feed line, which will go through a GM ethanol content sensor, which I have to make a Y, because the ethanol content sensor, you could only get them in 3/8 line sizes, which would be fine for 99% of the people, but that would be a choke point for my system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it come in and then Y it out. So one leg of the Y will go through the content sensor, and the other half will go through just another line of -8, and then I'll have another Y where it'll Y back down to an 8. Then it'll come up and go through a little bit better filter. It's like 74 micron filter before it goes into the regulator. So that's about the best way I found to do an ethanol content sensor. Some guys put them in the return line, which I'm not a fan of doing because you've already got the fuel through the motor. So if you're running under boost and you hit a lower ethanol content fuel, you could run into some problems there, and you wouldn't see it because the fuel's already through the motor before it gets to the content sensor. Does it make a difference? Who knows? A lot smarter guys than me. I'm not very smart at this stuff, so. But that's my reasoning. It makes sense in my head. If it doesn't make sense to you, you can tell me down in the comments. Tell me I'm a fucking dumbass. So wouldn't be the first time. I'm trying to think of anything else. I am also going to order the ZR1 map sensor, get that done. I have to have this pipe modified so I can put my IAT sensor in. I don't think it makes a difference being that far from the throttle body. I know the factory stuff puts it that far, so I don't think it'll make a difference. I haven't decided what meth kit I want to go with. Everybody goes with the snow kits. They're really good. There's a kit that one of my friends sent me a link to. It actually uses pressurized air, so I'm not 100% if I would trust that, but he makes good power with it. I think he's like over 700 horse and uses it all the time. So as far as the dome control on the wastegates, I've settled. There's a Via Air kit. Comes with a really nice compact little tank and compressor. It's like 120 bucks. I'm going to use the compressed air instead of going CO2. I just think it's a lot easier and I don't have to mess with bottles and all that stuff. I know a lot of guys like the CO2 because it's simpler and there's no wiring, but I think it'd just be simpler for me. The wiring part doesn't really bother me. Okay, that is my shitty little update for now. Take it easy.